When people ask if their astrology is compatible with another person, often they're just talking about sun signs. But when we're actually looking at compatibility in astrology, we're looking at people's entire charts, which are maps of their lives, known as the birth chart or natal chart commonly. And when these are overlaid onto another person's, it's called Synastry Astrology, or seeing how two people work together on an interpersonal basis. It's not like there is compatible or incompatible charts. It's more like, how are you compatible? Are the aspects that are showing up very challenging? Is there a lot of confrontation? Is there a lot of anger? Or are the aspects very easy, very harmonious, but never even maybe engaging with one another in a very deep way? We can also show up in different areas of each other's lives. For example, some people show up as family or coworkers. Other people clearly have romantic ties. So in this video, like the title says, we're going to be talking about the best synastry aspects for love or romantic involvement in astrology. This will not be a video on the most challenging aspects or aspects for other areas of life, such as family, friends. I might touch on them as a comparison, but the focus on this will be the best synastry aspects for love. While technically you will want as many of these as possible, no one will have all of them, and everyone will have challenging things as well. This video will focus on my favorites. However, basically, in analyzing relationship astrology and synastry astrology, you want the stereotypical basic astrology aspects to be there that are good. Trines or sextiles between any planets, Venus or Jupiter in any aspect, sextile, trine, square, opposition, conjunction, and conjunctions you ideally want with planets that get along. Venus and Jupiter with nearly any other planet, and you don't want Mars or Saturn conjunct anyone else's personal planets or angles. So if you know basic aspects in astrology, which I have a full video on, then you're pretty much set for synastry astrology. You want to see positive, easy aspects between all planets or points ideally, but no one is going to have that, so you want to minimize how many challenging or hard aspects you see from Mars or Saturn. So in running through my favorite aspects, you will notice that I do not mention sextiles, because sextiles are a weaker version of a trine essentially. Trines are the 120-degree angle of extreme harmony. Sextiles are 60 degrees and they're like opportunity harmony, or it might work out, it kind of is there. So I'm never going to mention sextiles, because if I wanted a sextile, I would just take a trine over it. If you have a sextile instead of a trine, it's still cute. It's just not as cute as it would be if it's a trine. No big deal though, it's better than nothing, but TLDR, you get why I'm not mentioning sextiles. I'm going to talk about trines. And ideally, you want trines from Venus or Jupiter to other inner planets. Venus and Jupiter are the two cute shit planets. Jupiter is the cutest cute shit planet, but Jupiter's not quite as romantic as Venus. So you want a little bit of both. Jupiter's a teacher, it's a giver. Venus is the actual like romantic love language planet. And it's also nice to have positive aspects from Mars or Saturn in sextile or trine. Mars gets things done. It shows force. It shows putting effort. Saturn shows structure and longevity. So I do like to see positive aspects from Saturn. So off the bat, I love to see Venus conjunct someone else's rising sign. The Venus person feels like the rising sign person is their ideal, and the rising sign person feels very seen, very acknowledged, and very loved by the Venus person. So Venus conjunct someone else's rising does not necessarily show longevity or the deeper meaning or feelings in the relationship, but Venus conjunct someone's rising sign does show that the Venus person has a physical ideal of the rising sign person, and that the rising sign person feels very seen and adored. So on a physical attraction level, I love to see Venus conjunct rising. It can really show that aesthetically you get along and you vibe. I also love Jupiter conjunct someone's rising sign. The Jupiter person feels like the rising sign person is an incredible teacher, and the rising sign person feels like the Jupiter person is learning a ton. They feel like they're just absorbing so much of the rising sign person's wisdom, and the rising sign person feels like they are given a lot by the Jupiter person. That the rising sign person feels that the Jupiter person is giving them so much time, attention, love. They're very grateful for the Jupiter person. Moon conjunct rising is also really lovely, because the moon person feels like the rising sign person is embodying what they feel internally. So moon person's inner world, what they need to feel safe, their feelings, how they operate privately, is how the rising sign person automatically is with their personality, with their character, and how they are in the world. So moon person person is like, rising person, you make me feel safe because how I feel is how you operate and how you act in real life. And the rising sign person feels like they can be themselves, they can be very comfortable, they don't need a guard up around the moon person. The guard is down. Sun conjunct moon is also lovely, especially when the sun is a guy and the moon is a girl. Because the moon person's feelings, their internal world, is like the sun person's goals and what they're going after. So the moon person feels very safe, very seen, very heard, very praised. And the sun person feels like they can be soft, they can be appreciated, they can be a little bit cozier. They don't have to, like, the moon and sun person complement each other's masculine and feminine energies very well. The moon person feels like the sun person embodies their goals, and the sun person feels like the moon person is who they can be safe around. Venus trine Mars is lovely, obviously, because Venus and Mars trine shows that, like, there's great romantic potential here. Venus trine Venus, Mars trine Mars, also great, but I love Venus trine Mars because the Venus person feels like they can easily be seen and, like, the Mars person can easily go after them, and the Mars person feels like they can easily attain what they want in the Venus person. It doesn't mean that there's not a chase, it doesn't mean like there's not some friction there that keeps things going, but it means that the ease of seeing your goal in the Venus person, or the ease of seeing who you want to come after you with the Mars person, is there. The Venus person is the prey, the Mars person is the predator, and there's like a game to it and a harmony to it. Venus trine Venus shows that your love languages get along very well, and Mars trine Mars shows that your way of getting things done is very similar and goes along very well. So positive aspects between Venus and Mars are just lovely automatically for a romantic relationship. Sun conjunct someone's rising sign is lovely, not even just in a romantic context, but it shows that the rising person idealizes and sees the goals that they want to attain in the sun person, and the sun person feels like their ego is stroked by the rising sign person for compliments or just being like the attention is on them. So I do like to see those connected for any relationship, honestly, but especially, you know, romantic, it can't hurt. Now, I also love trines from any inner planet to Saturn, specifically Venus or the moon. So a trine to Saturn from Venus or the moon shows longevity, it shows endurance in the relationship, and it's a little boring. It's not necessarily like the most engaging, but it does show that there's an ability to withstand and be mature with one another. It's not a hit and run, boom, then burn relationship. So while those are my favorite synastry aspects for romantic astrology, do let me know if you want my most challenging aspects for this, like Mars on someone's moon or something like that I do think can be pretty challenging. As always, we are entire charts, so you will not have one easy aspect mentioned here and suddenly the relationship is great. You will also not have one challenging aspect and suddenly the relationship is over. But if you do want a full video on the most challenging, or even how to look at synastry charts and how to weigh things out in a way that is putting things together so you can see, like, what am I looking at? What do I prioritize? Let me know. I'll end with also commenting on the house placements for someone's planets in someone else's chart. Because when you're laying charts one on top of one another, your planets will fall into someone else's houses, and vice versa. If you invert it, their planets are falling into your houses, showing what area of life they're showing up in. If you have a ton of planets in someone's houses more around work, you're more likely to be better in a working sense. If you have a ton of planets in someone's romantic houses, you're more likely to get along in a romantic sense. And this can also help see what areas of life you activate for them versus you, if there's any huge difference there, because sometimes this can really show how one person is romantically involved and the other person wants strictly business or just platonic friends. But for a romantic relationship, it's great to have your planets or their planets in your 5th, 7th, or 11th houses. The 5th house is dating and romance. The 7th house is long-term lasting relationships like marriage. And the 11th house is networking, friends, and being social. So having yours or the other person's planets in the 5th or 7th or 11th houses is automatically much easier than some of the other more business or difficult houses. Just like how for a family relationship, having them in the 4th house of family would be really great, or for a friendship, having them in the 3rd house of daily friends, or even the 11th house as well for networking and larger social groups would be great. For romantic relationships, the 5th, 7th, and 11th are great, but it's nice to have people's planets in the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 10th, or 11th houses. Those are the better places to have things. The 1st house is also great for romantic relationships, but it's purely physical generally, or personality on like a more surface level. Not that the 1st house is just surface, but when it's in a synastry aspect, it's very much like, ooh, boom, boom, we like how each other look, or our first impressions. So it's nice, but it's not going to really endure. What's going to endure are placements in 5th, 7th, 11th houses that are positive, maybe bring in some Saturn moon, and also are generally harmonious with Venus and Mars. If you have planets in someone's 2nd house, it's not challenging, it's just mostly financial generally. The 4th house is fine, but it's usually family or home environment. The 6th house is overtly challenging. It's going to be more nagging with one another, or health issues are involved, or you're in a coworker dynamic that is not all like that fun. The 8th house will be overtly challenging as well. It's usually going to bring in depth and intensity into the relationship that has discussions early on that you were not expecting. Can bring in difficulties in finances as well because you're working together on an investment level. The 10th house is totally great, but it's very professional and more about work. If you have them though, it will not keep you out of love per se. There will just be a professional tone there usually, or you will have worked for one another. The 11th, like I said, is fun, great social. And then the 12th is overtly challenging because it'll bring out being triggered in one another or mental health issues that are ongoing in one another. So just overtly 6th or 12th can be more challenging. 8th is challenging, but not as much as those. 2nd house is neutral. It's about money. The rest, as I explained. And then 5th, 7th, 11th, ideal for romantic relationship activations. TLDR, aspects from Venus or Jupiter to any other planet in someone's chart are lovely. Positive aspects, trines, sextiles from Mars or Saturn to other people's personal planets, lovely. Falling in someone's 1st, 5th, 7th, or 11th houses with your personal planets or vice versa, theirs into yours, lovely. But we're all entire charts, so do not freak out if you don't have all of these. No one will if you don't have any of these. Maybe you have other redeeming aspects. And it's overall how charts work on so many different levels that if you can spot these and see several of them, that's amazing. But don't be scared if you're confused, lost. Let me know in the comments what videos you want from me, and I will see you in the next one.